So after the success of 2024 track and field, and then 2024 cross country, I was just like, I want to go off on a final banger. I've already kind of spoiled it that did not end up PRing in the 5K or 10K, so my 15:20 and 32:35 ended up being my 5K and 10K PRs from 2024 track and field for the rest of my collegiate career. But luckily, we did end up breaking out mid-distance. One thing I could have done a little different, looking back, remember how I said I was really strict about sticking to what I knew worked for me? I kind of in 2025 was like, I kind of followed certain things that like were new to me, and looking back, I probably could have stuck a little more to what I was doing, but it is what it is. However, excuse me, like I said, I did break out on 3K and under, so you know what? Training did work in a way that was good. I just didn't expect it. But no, 2025 track and field was a lot of fun. I managed to see the most Hartnell Panthers ever in a single season. I had a lot of fun with my team. And then for the first time ever, keep in mind, cross country, I'd gone to one little thing actually. So, one of the reasons I always had this goal of being like good from the 800 to 10K is because that's what I saw the greatest runners do before me. Frankie, for example, and Pemon, just to name two. And then also be proficient both cross and track. Now, through somehow a variety of circumstances, I too managed to become a scorer in both cross country and track and field. Get all conference in cross country, track and field. I managed to compete in state in JUCO. I managed to compete at nationals in cross country for NIA by this point. But I remember the other goal that I had was, I was like, the best runners I know get to the highest level of competition. Okay, I'm not talking about getting on All-American, getting All-State, whatever. I'm just talking about getting to the highest level of competition. And that in the case of high school, that's state for cross country and track. For JUCO, state for cross country and track. Then for university, be it NAIA or NCAA, nationals for both cross country and track. I completed one half of that, and in my final season, I was like, I want to get to nationals. Now, my goal was to get it in 10K, which I come nowhere near close to. Then it was the 1500, which was a little closer to, but didn't end up getting. But I did manage to go to nationals. I didn't end up running. Let me talk about the story then. So, we're training, and I remember in the first part of the season, I just said, let's do this. And we start off at the FPU invite again. This time, instead of at Sunnyside or Sunrise High School, whatever it was, we competed at actually FPU's newly furbished track. And I remember, I was like, all right, we're going to do what we did last year. 1,500 meter pacer, and then 3K. Paced the 1,500 meters. I paced 4:17. I remember I told Ali G, hey, Ali G, just work with me. Run behind me up until I tell you it's time to go. Then we ran. Remember, he stuck with me. And then when it was 700 meters to go, I told him, hey, Ali G, go, go. And then he went out and ran. And I ran 4:17 just to chill out. But I remember he ended up PRing from like 4:20, whatever it was, down to like 4:15, 4:16, and I was like, Ali G, he's like, thanks JT for the help, and he did so great. And I remember Jalen went out and ran as hard as he could, and he died out. He got like 4:12. But then Jorge and Kevin, they had some PRs too. They both went like 4:16, 4:15 in the 1500 in their separate heat, and I was like, all right, good stuff. And like the team just had a really good start off that race, and I was so proud to see so many PRs. Anyways, but then 3K comes up for me, and I remember I just say, I'm gonna go out and run. I ran, and oh man, I still will never forget. I was just like, just run, just go for it. Now I thought I was like locked in 2024. Nah, 2025. I was just going for it until my little legs could not go anymore. I probably did accidentally positive split some of my last two laps, but I remember last 200 meters, I just gave it everything I had to go for it. When I crossed the finish line, I went from 8:54 down to 8:44, like 0.85, and I remember I was like, oh my gosh. And like when I remember I texted my Hartnell coach, I was like, hey, 8:44, I'm now a 9:20s equivalent guy from high school. He's like, good job, Josh, right there with DP in them, and it felt good. And oh man, getting that 3K PR just felt so solid. Not only did I go sub 9, I went way below sub 9, and like there's no denying I was sub 9. I was just a simple 10:33 guy from high school, and it just felt so good to really get that and see that. I was like, dang, I've come so far. Remember Ashley was there. She was like, oh my gosh, Josh, great stuff. I actually ended up seeing 2 of my breakout races now that I think about that, actually. But it was special, like just getting that and seeing that happen. So great first meet. We then go to Kim Dice again, where I run the 5K, and unfortunately, by the way, big shout out to my old high school coach Kavanaugh for coming to support me. I'm only sorry I couldn't give you the best race. I ran the 5K, and I managed to go 15:48. So I did not only did I not PR, I did not run as fast as I did the previous season, which I was like, what the heck? What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I managed to, I said it was weird that I did not go at least sub 15:30, because that's what I ran there the previous season. And then also, I was going with an 8:44 rather than an 8:54, so I was like, what happened? Looking back, excuse me, probably messed up in how I was just thinking about that so much, but live and learn, guys. But I remember, yeah, I did not run the best 5K, but sub 16 I can do on my worst day of my life, so I'll take that. I do want to give a shout out to Jorge. He broke the 16-minute barrier his first 5K try, so Jorge, props on that one. But I think what was special from that day ended up being the 800. Funny story, I remember Jalen, our top 800 meter guy, was gonna go run the 800. He was in the same heat as my old high school and Hartnell teammate, Ricky. I said, hey Ricky, trust me, Jalen's fast, you can trust him, just run. But then Jalen went out and had his worst race. And I told Jalen, Jalen, I told you I hyped you up to my friend Ricky, what the heck? But Ricky actually did really good that day. He managed to go sub 2, and that wind was atrocious that day. But I remember that 5K, I remember instead of doing the 1500, I told coach, hey, I want to do the 800. That it's long overdue for me to go sub 2. And I remember that 800 I had after the 5K. And I remember getting ready for the race, and I was just like, oh, it's windy. And I already had a bad day, so I was kind of like, you know what, don't think about how the day went, just run. And also, keep in mind, it had been 2 years at that point since I ran an 800. So the last time I ran an 800 would have been, I don't know what specific day, but it would have been in 2023 track and field season. I think the last time I ran 800 would have been Coast Conference of 2023. Then my PR was 201.92. So I go out and run, and I remember that race I said, just go for it. And I ran as hard as I could. And what happened? I remember running, and I ended up going 201.72. So I had a microsecond through. I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember I told coach, now my goal was to go sub 2 if I'm being honest. I remember when I was running on that last 100 meter stretch, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so close. And I didn't get out of game. But we actually had a really good trio of 800 meter guys that race. I went 201.72. Kevin he went from 206 down to 201.71. And then Ali G went like 2 flat point something. And I remember he fell down at the end of his race. And I was like, oh my gosh, we all almost just went sub 2. And it was crazy. And it was in the wind too. So we were like, oh, something big. And I told coach, hey coach, I'm gonna need one more race to go sub 2. And he's like, you got it, Josh. But anyways, so that was the Kim Dyson bite. May not done too well on the 5K, but we had a great re-entry into the 800 meters. Then was the IE Open where I ran 10K, where I did atrocious. I got these lovely photos, thankfully, so I'll still take that. Big shout out to the photographer. But I just got stuck in no man's land. I just could not break through on that, and it is what it is. But I ended up running like 33 something. It was bad. And I ended up not running another 10K that season. I'll get to why, but mainly I lost interest. But then too, I just also realized I was doing a lot better than mid distances, so I decided to just stick with those. But anyways, yeah, 10K was the only thing I ran that day. Special thing from the Yagi invite, Cole, he finally, what you call it, sorry, I got a text just now. I was like, what the heck? Anyways, what was I saying? Cole, he had his first race of the season that day. He had a weird like little injury that took him out with the first 2 meets. But he ran that year. He finally broke the 2-minute barrier. It's funny. All of last season got stuck at like 2 flat point something. And we jokingly said he passed his curse off to Ali G up until Ali G went sub 2 this season. But Cole, he ran the Aggie Open invite and he finally went sub 2 to go like 157, okay? And he finally broke the sub 2 barrier on his first race back. We're like, oh my gosh, Cole, yes! So that was a special day that was a special memory from the Aggie invite. And Derek actually breaking his 3K PR, he went to 9:11, so anyways, he ran a PR in the 3K, so I was really proud of him too. So anyways, so that was Aggie invite. Not best race for me, but those are 2 PRs I remembered. But then it wouldn't be until the West Coast Relays, which remember, West Coast Relays I missed last season because I got sick. I remember West Coast Relays, I was like, alright, this time I'm gonna run. I remember, unfortunately, West Coast Relays was right when I started dealing with some ankle trouble. I remember I was training. I remember I was doing this ladder workout because West Coast Relays was on the weekend of spring break. So I remember I was home and I did a workout on the Hartnell track, and I remember I did a ladder workout where I went from 1K, 800, 600, 400, 200. I remember the 800, I went like 228 at all effort, and I felt terrible. I was like, oh man, I'm not ready for this race. But I just said, you know what? I'm going to do what I can. And I remember I just trained best I could that week. I remember at West Coast Relays, I told myself, I'm going to run as hard as I can and get this PR. Where I run the 1500 meters. I go up to line up. And you know what's funny? I'm there with Merced, and Hartnell's also there. So my old Hartnell coach is there. I was like, I gotta show this guy that I've learned a lot since my Hartnell days. Where I ran, and oh my gosh, I was just taking the lead. I wasn't letting anyone get in my way. I was just running. I remember there was this guy from East Bay that was really fast. Coleman came, dusted me and crossed every time. But I remember I was just like, I'm just going to run as fast as I can. I ran. And my goal was to hit the Brian Clay snare, which was sub 358. I remember I ran as hard as I could. And I remember last 100 meters, even though my butt was wanting to fall off, I just go. And I finish. And I managed to go sub 4. Where I had the gnarliest headache of my life, actually. Like, you guys have no idea. Like, I actually had to, like, lean over and go, oh my gosh. And, like, for 5 minutes, I had to lie down in the grass and, like, put my head down. Like, oh, my head hurts. But I went 358.62. Did not hit the Brian Clay standard, unfortunately. And I do not end up running Brian Clay at all. But I remember I was like, I did it. I went sub 4. Cepeda got to see it. Vicente got to see it, and a lot of my former teammates got to see it. And oh my gosh, I remember Jesus Martinez was there. He's like, that was Dog Riley I saw. And I was like, thanks, Jesus. And then I doubled back I ended up having then my highest quality double my entire career, 358 and 1534 in the 5K. And that would end up being the fastest I run the 5K that season. But West Coast was great. I remember Ashley, who also saw me go something, I was like, oh my gosh, you went sub 4, that's crazy. Ricky too was shocked. He was like, oh gosh, I needed to start picking up my gear. You're not too far behind me. I'm 355. And it was so much fun. But yeah, West Coast really is special. I remember calling everyone like, I finally broke the 4-minute barrier. And I remember I told Derek, I was like, you know, I've gone sub 4. It's now time to go sub 2. And then we have the Berkeley meet. And Bruce Hamilton, I run the mile. I ran 4:22, which, it's not that 4:22 is bad. That was just bad for the conditioning I thought I was in. But anyways, I ran the mile, went 4:22. It was meh, whatever it was. My goal was to go sub 4:17. I think I needed to go to hit the Brian Clay standard equivalent, which they would have taken. But then I'm getting that. But then the 800 happens. And I'm actually in the same heat as Cole. And I was ranked dead last in my heat, okay? And I was just like, oh, well, that means ideally I'm just going to go for it. I remember I lined up and I said, I'm just going to run as hard as I can. I remember the gun goes off and I just run. Now, first lap, I'm running as hard as I can, but I remember everyone was in front of me. Kevin, a bunch of these other guys, but I was just like, don't worry about him, Josh, just run. But I remember go through the lap. Apparently, we went like 59 high, okay? That's what Jorge told me. And he said, I'm not going to lie, Josh, I thought you guys were going to go like 202. I was like, what? Did you have no faith in me? But 500, and when I was at the 500 meter mark, I just said, when it was 300 meters left to go, that's when it's 300 meters left to go is when I take off in the favorite. I said, it's time to go. And I just ran. I remember at one point, Cole and I were neck and neck. I was just like, let's run. If you look at the video, there's a scene where he looks at me and laughs, and that's what I got. I beat him by like 0.05. I'm not going to hold that win over Cole too much, because I'm not going to lie, the waterfall start kind of got him a little bit. I remember I ran. I ended up taking second place. That this kid from Butte, Logan, who's going to East Bay, he ended up swiping the win from me. Remember I went 158, and I actually know the milliseconds 0.352 because they rounded. Jalen and I managed to run the exact same time down to the millisecond, and Athletic.net showed, or sorry, T-First, whatever you wanted to, just showed it for some reason. They showed that we directly tied. And I was like, dang, Jalen, you're not so hot. Race ended up being my best race. And it was funny how they went down to like that precise of the seconds. But oh my gosh, I finally went September. I went through, and I wasn't even really tired, but mentally I was just so out of it that I just went plop. I remember 600 to go, when it was 200 to go, I just took off, and I finally got a dream. And that was my 9th time ever running the 800. So that's why I always say 9th time's the charm. Managed to go sub 2, and that ended up being my last PR of the season. So then we have Twilight Meet, where I just go 4:04 and 15:55, where I pace the 5K. Then we had Calpac, where we went out and ran. And Calpac, we had a good feeling we were going to win, but we still worked for it, made sure that no one was going to tell us off. And we ended up running. I managed to come home with double all conference once again, the 1500, and where I got second place, and then the 5K where I took third place next to Sharvin and Chavez. And Calpac was a lot of fun. Wasn't as special as 2024, but you know what? UC Merced leaves off 3-time reigning champ for Calpac. And actually, since the track and field program was only established in 2023, they can say they were undefeated in Calpac conference. So let's see what they do in the NCAA, or CCAA conference, sorry. And I'm excited to see what they do. And Vicente, he's got ambition. I think he's going to train some special group. But anyways, but then for Oxy, go there, and at Oxy I managed to run the 1500, where didn't run so high. I ended up just running another 4:04. So I was only destined to go sub 4 one time, it turns out. But you want, one time's all you need. So I went sub 4 though, and I at least take that. But I ran my last 1500 meters my entire collegiate career at Oxy. But then, oh, I didn't even mention this at conference. The 4x8 team of Cole, Sharvin, Jalen, and Chavez end up getting the A standard by themselves, and it was a spectacular race to watch. They all played their parts so perfect. But they get to nationals within the 4x8, and since I was sub 2 and then Ali G went sub 2 at conference, he and I were the alternates. So even though I didn't get the dream of getting in the 1500 10K, I then end up getting to go to nationals as an alternate. And one thing, by the way, I said I talked about the 10K. After I went sub 4, I just said, I'm just gonna focus on mid distance, forget the 10K. That's why I didn't even bother doing the 10K at conference. But that's how it went at conference. So we then trained for 3 weeks up until nationals, and I remember I was like, I'm finally being that. Even though I wasn't guaranteed to compete, I was just like, I'm going to the nationals and have a chance, and it was great. Unfortunately, now I don't say unfortunately like I got to run. I did end up getting to run. I am sad though that the reason I got to run was because Cole got injured. I don't know what happened to him. Cole did not have a fun year with injuries. He got injured in summer across, and then he also got injured twice during track. So I don't know what happened. Cole, though, still a remarkable season with that 155 and getting that. Like, I will forever be in debt to Cole because, if it weren't for him, I would not have been able to get to nationals in track and field. Like, so Cole, I'm forever in your debt. But you were robbed of that, not getting able to run that. I'm sorry that you got injured because I don't know what happened there, but took it like a champ, way better than I did when I got injured in 2019. But nationals, 4-bay squad ended up being myself, Ali G, Char, and Jalen. Well, I won't lie, we got last. We did not run that good. I don't know what happened. I'm only going to talk about myself, but for me, I just didn't run to my conditioning. I won't lie. I was a 158, 358, 58 guy, even though I had been running, even though I hadn't repeated my sub 4, I still ran like consistently 402 to 404, so I should have been able to at least pump out like a 158 to 2 flat on that leg, and I remember my score was like 207, so I guess I just didn't believe. Who knows? But ran as hard as I could with what I could, and just ended up not being enough, I guess. But yeah, we didn't run the best, but I will take the dub that I got to run nationals, and that's what I'm going to take from that. And I got to run it with Jalen, Sharvin, and Ali G. So I'll still take that dub, and even though I wish it was more, I'll still take it. And then Jonathan, whether or not he realizes, ran a spectacular race. I'm really proud of how he went out in the 1500. Same with Martel in the 200 meters, and I just had so much fun with that squad. We had a really great time, just the whole group of us. So yeah, I keep in mind, even though I didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, nationals was a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, the stuff we all did. Anyways, but yeah, that ended up being 2025. So I guess at the end of the day, I ended up being a mid-distance runner after all my years of trying to be an endurance runner. But yeah, I'm now going to close out with one last little thing, and then that's the video. But yeah, overall, track and field at UC Merced was really, really special. I managed to go from, so at Hartnell, I was from the 800 10K, I was 201, 405, 901, 1535, 3303. At Merced, I became 158, 358, 844, 1520, 3235. And then a 4-time all-conference runner, back-to-back conference wins, just like Hartnell. And a nationals competitor, like, may not have become the fastest by any means. I didn't quite achieve the all-rounded runner's dream of being an all-around distance ace and mid-distance ace, but you know what? I still had some remarkable PRs and made some great memories and got to be a contributor, and for that alone, I'm very thankful. And I always said the best runners compete at the highest levels of competition, even if some could be argued, it's like, well, did you really do it? Yeah, whatever. I can say I've competed at both nationals for cross-country and track, and I'm going to err on the side of positive, which is something I could have done a little bit better. But overall, UC Merced track and field was a great experience where I got to have some great personal breakthroughs and accomplish some epic goals. So overall, UC Merced track and field was one epic of a time, and thankful I can say I'm sub 9, sub 4, and sub 2. So Yeah, it was pretty epic being a Bobcat those 2 years. So overall, that's UC Merced track and field and my UC Merced running career. So next videos coming up will be some of the last concluding this little series. So thanks for all watching so far.